Shrimp on treadmills, part of $1.3 million in NSF grants 2009 to 2014. The National Science Foundation funded two grants totaling about $1.3 million to study coastal ecosystem health. One small part of that work involved building miniature underwater treadmills, costing roughly $15,000, to test shrimp endurance while infected with bacteria. The $682,000 figure that spread through the media was one of the two grants, not the treadmill cost. Senator Tom Coburn put it in his annual waste book anyway. The same agency had also funded mountain lions on treadmills as a calibration tool within a broader $856,000 GPS wildlife tracking study. Two species, two studies, millions of dollars. The finding: stressed animals perform worse than healthy ones. If that seems expensive for animals going nowhere, the next project spent considerably more and produced a hole in the ground. The Superconducting Super Collider, nearly $2 billion, abandoned, 1993. The U.S. began building the world's most powerful particle accelerator in Waxahachie, Texas. By 1993, nearly $2 billion had been spent, and 22 kilometers of tunnel had been excavated. Congress canceled it and walked away. The original estimate of $4.4 billion had ballooned to $12 billion. The Cold War had ended. Attempts to get other countries to cost share had failed. Prominent physicists testified against it. The project collapsed under cost overruns and the politics that had justified it. The goals were eventually achieved by CERN's Large Hadron Collider, a project the U.S. then contributed $531 million to. The country that canceled its own collider ended up funding someone else's. Nearly $2 billion produced a sealed tunnel. The next project spent 7 times more and produced nothing at all. Yucca Mountain, nuclear waste storage, $15 billion canceled, 1987 to 2011. The U.S. has generated nuclear waste since the 1940s. In 1987, Congress selected Yucca Mountain, Nevada, as the site for permanent underground storage. Over 24 years, $15 billion was spent designing and partially building the facility. In 2011, it was canceled. The GAO's own report concluded the decision was driven by political opposition, not safety or technical failures. Nevada politicians had fought it for decades. The Western Shoshone people, whose ancestral land it occupied, had consistently opposed it. The nuclear waste still has no permanent home. $15 billion spent. 24 years lost. Same problem. No solution. That project at least tried to solve a real problem. The next one solved nothing, because there was no problem to begin with. The Bedford Limestone Pyramid, $700,000 for one layer, 1981. The federal government awarded $700,000 to build a 1/5 scale limestone replica of the Great Pyramid of Giza, planned at 95 feet tall, near Needmore in Lawrence County, Indiana. The official justification: tourism. One layer of blocks was laid. Senator Proxmire gave it his Golden Fleece Award for most wasteful expenditure. Funding was pulled almost immediately. The single row of stones is still there. No tourists ever came. The $700,000 is gone. At least that project was visible. The next one spent $600 million on technology that turned out to be completely non-functional. The Census Bureau's handheld computers, $600 million scrapped, 2010. Before the 2010 census, the Bureau replaced paper forms with handheld digital devices through a contract with Harris Corporation. $600 million was spent. In field testing, the software failed and data was lost. By the time the failure was undeniable, the contract had ballooned toward $1.3 billion. The GAO found both sides at fault, and that the warning signs had been visible early and repeatedly ignored. The 2010 census was conducted entirely on paper. The $600 million produced nothing usable. That was a failure of technology. The next one became the single most recognizable symbol of government waste in modern American history. The Bridge to Nowhere, $398 million for 50 people, 2005. Congress approved $398 million to connect Ketchikan, Alaska to Gravina Island, population approximately 50. The island has a regional airport already accessible by a 5-minute ferry ride costing $6. It was canceled not because of any technical problem, but because journalists reported on it. A $398 million bridge for 50 people could not survive public scrutiny. No review. No audit, just embarrassment. The ferry still runs. The 50 residents are fine. The next case shows what happens when speed is prioritized so heavily that the most basic checks are switched off entirely. $1.4 billion in COVID relief sent to dead people, 2020. The CARES Act required stimulus payments be delivered as rapidly as possible. To meet that mandate, the IRS fell back on procedures last used during the 2008 financial crisis, procedures that didn't cross-reference Social Security Administration death records. IRS counsel had already concluded the agency had no legal authority to deny payments to anyone who had previously filed a tax return, alive or not. Treasury, which distributes the payments, didn't have access to SSA death records at all. According to a GAO report published in June 2020, approximately $1.4 billion went to over 1.1 million people already dead in the first CARES Act round alone. From a system that forgot to check who was alive to a government that paid $85 million for equipment the seller knew had never worked. Iraq's $85 million fake bomb detectors. Between 2008 and 2010, the Iraqi government spent $85 million on devices called the ADE-651, confirmed by BBC Newsnight. They were marketed as capable of detecting explosives through walls, without batteries or power. A British investigation confirmed the device had no working electronics. It was reverse-engineered from a $20 novelty golf ball finder bought off the shelf in the U.S. James McCormick then sold each unit to Iraq for up to $40,000. Deployed at Baghdad checkpoints, multiple attacks occurred at sites where it was the primary screening tool, including 2 bombings in late 2009 that killed nearly 300 people. McCormick was convicted of fraud at the Old Bailey in April 2013 and sentenced to 10 years in prison the following month. $85 million for a $20 golf ball finder. The FBI's $170 million software never launched, 2001 to 2005. The FBI had known for years its infrastructure was failing. Agents were filing on paper using 12-year-old network systems. In September 2000, Congress approved $380 million to fix it. After September 11th, the timeline was accelerated and a further $78 million added. The centerpiece was the virtual case file, contracted to SAIC in 2001, due operational by end of 2003. SAIC delivered in December 2003. The FBI immediately rejected it, documenting 17 functional deficiencies. What followed was years of changing specifications, poor management, and 730,000 lines of code that ultimately did nothing. A Department of Justice Inspector General audit in February 2005 concluded the project was unfit for use. It was officially scrapped in April 2005. FBI Director Robert Mueller told Congress, "I am disappointed that we did not come through with virtual case file. $170 million spent. $104 million produced nothing." The FBI started again from scratch with a replacement project called Sentinel. The Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle, $3 billion over 15 years. From 1996 to 2011, the Marine Corps spent $3 billion developing an amphibious vehicle to carry Marines from ships to shore at high speed. Secretary of Defense Robert Gates canceled it on January 6, 2011. During testing, it broke down every 4.5 hours on average. The minimum combat-ready requirement was 43.5 hours between failures. It never came close. Out of 11 attempted amphibious tests, it completed just 2. Out of 10 gunnery tests, it completed just one. Out of 3 land mobility tests, it completed none. Unit cost had reached $24 million per vehicle. 15 years, $3 billion. Not a single vehicle entered service. A replacement program started from scratch the same week. 10 projects, all officially approved, all fully funded, all completely useless. The money was real. The results were not. And somewhere right now, another proposal is moving through another approval process, with nobody personally losing a dollar if it fails. The list is, unfortunately, very long. Subscribe if you want more.